Wow, the lighting's actually good today, and I'm doing a video early. Y'all should be very proud of me right now. Stay tuned. And I'm here to talk about the third episode of the recent season of Criminal Minds called The Thousand Suns. So let me just start off this episode by saying I hate planes with a passion. I don't like them. I rather have my feet firmly planted on the ground. Yeah, planes terrify me, and just watching this episode just gave me the worst nightmares in the world, and it's just So this episode of Criminal Minds starts off with a quote read by Hotch, and it was, "If the radiance of 1,000 suns were to burst at once into the sky, that would be like the splendor of the Almighty One." And it's from the Hindu holy book. First scene in this episode, it takes place on a plane, and you see all the passengers and babies crying, people talking, and everything seems to be going well until they experience turbulence. But you know what? It's just turbulence. It happens all the time. It's a little scary. But of course I know what's gonna happen, and everybody else knows what's gonna happen in the first 5 minutes of the show. The plane crashes. This first scene already gave me anxiety. I was shaking, I was in a ball, curled up, I was screaming. It was a mess. To just start off this episode with such a big catastrophe, you just wonder what's gonna happen next. So the BAU is the first on the case, and they're being used to just determine if this is a terrorist situation of, you know, Al-Qaeda, the Jihad, ISIS. They're just trying to, they're just there to see what's going on. Reed and Callahan are sent to the disaster area where the plane is and the broken pieces and everything. Just a shout out to the Criminal Minds prop masters and set creators. That was amazing. The attention to detail that these people put in their main props and in everything, that is just amazing, and it made the episode that much better and that much more emotional. So while Reed is talking to the head investigator, Callahan is sort of withdrawn. She's very standoffish, and she seems like she's holding something inside. So this is the third episode, so this is when you're gonna start wondering what makes Callahan tick, since she's new to the team. She picks up this car, and she looks like she's having a flashback, and of course Reed, he notices everything. He tries to ask her what's going on, and I guess sort of tries to profile her until she finally tells him what happened. This is when you find out Kate's backstory, which is that her sister and brother-in-law both died in 9/11 because they worked at the Pentagon, and this plane crash, of course, naturally would have a traumatizing effect, and you could tell that she's really heartbroken about it. There was one survivor in this plane crash, and that would be the co-pilot, because I guess he didn't really crash land like everybody else did. He got caught and on like some wiring, and then he fell. So that was the only way that he could possibly survive like a 10,000 feet plummet to the earth. Morgan and JJ, they're interviewing him. They're trying to see if he could talk. And they find out that he had no control of the plane. He was trying to get it steady, and then that's all he remembers, and he blacks out. Mass hysteria is sort of breaking out because news reporters are coming in, and this is when the conspiracy theories start. You guys know what I'm talking about. Don't lie to yourself. You know what happened when Malaysia airline fell down. What was the first thing people did? So of course, naturally, you have several different possibilities of how the plane went down. They thought suicide bomber, they thought missile, they thought, I don't know, someone put an explosive on the plane and blew it up from the ground. There was so many conspiracy theories, and it never made any sense to Reed, because Reed's like, the way that the plane broke apart, that would not even be possible. So Reed deduces that there's no way that a bomb or a missile did that. It had to be something within the plane to break it apart like that, because it does not make any sense. After some investigating, they found that the landing gear was initiated during the flight process, and what that did, that made a part of the wings flap up, and it made the I guess the pressure of the plane unbalanced, and it caused it to break apart. So now, how would this happen, you ask? The pilot or the co-pilot has the ability to initiate the landing gear, and if they didn't do it, then it would have to be equipment failure, which is highly unlikely considering that the plane went through massive checks before it took off. With this new information, the military thinks that this was a suicide mission, and they do a background check on the co-pilot, but he comes up clean. So they asked JJ and Morgan to sort of investigate, see what's going on with the co-pilot, and it turns out that he suffers from depression, and he recently had to take a sabbatical so he could get treatment. So they asked him, were you suicidal? He was like, no. While the interview was going on between the co-pilot JJ and Morgan, Reed and Rossi are listening to the airplane recording before the plane went down, and you hear the pilots talking about how they can't control the plane, they're losing signal, they can't get onto the frequency to get to the air station, and then you just hear the plane crash. During the recording, it finally makes sense. Reed and Rossi, they finally know what's going on. Someone is controlling the plane from the ground. It could be via remote or anything else, and they explain this to the military, and of course, once you hear this, it sounds a bit far-fetched, but once they give their explanation, it's perfectly fine. The military just got word from the President of the United States that he wants all flights grounded no matter what before the plane goes into a populated area, which is something that nobody wants. That would increase the casualty count. And then they break them with the big whammy. They cannot bring this plane down safely within the next 15 minutes or so, they will be forced to shoot it down. What the f***? You've got to be kidding me. Are you kidding me? Let's just talk about it for a moment. Now let's say you or me were on that plane that is supposedly about to get hijacked by a guy with a freaking remote, and you want someone to initially be thinking about saving you. They're saying that if they don't get a chance to save us, they're gonna shoot the plane down and kill us all. Yeah, just kill like 300 people. Thank you for contributing your tax dollars though. I would be damned if my government decides to kill my ass instead of trying to save me like the United States of America is supposed to. Just to say, now the BAU is on the most insane time crunch ever, because of course the BAU, they do not want to shoot this plane down. They want to try to save as many people as possible. The brilliant baby girl herself, Penelope Garcia, comes across this article from a woman that was on the previous plane talking about a man that she had a date with, and it was titled The Worst Date Ever. And she talked about this man who was speaking of blowing up planes and how it would be to control planes and hacking and all that stuff. And of course, Penelope tracked him down, and his background was less than pleasant. He was an introvert, he was fired from his job, and he was skilled in the hacking and computer industry. Sends them the coordinates, and they are praying that they get to the unsub on time before he decides to kill 300 people. Meanwhile, the unsub, he's already hacking the plane, and there's turbulence and all that stuff that happened in the first plane, and I'm on the edge of my seat just screaming and praying to God that nothing happens to these people, because I cannot live through another plane crash. Seeing it on TV gives me anxiety. So Kate, Hotch, Morgan are at the unsub's house. They see him, and he has the remote control in hand. And while they're trying to get the unsub and convince him that what he's doing is wrong, you see the fighter jets getting ready to lock the missiles to shoot the plane down. The unsub gives them an ultimatum. He says that he's going to blow the plane up now, or they could call off the fighter jets and land them safely. So Hotch, it has no choice but to call off the fighter jets. And then he's like, oh, I'll just end it all now. He pushes the remote control to crash the plane, and Morgan, bless his heart, shoots him in the head like he deserves. Was that rude? Oh well. After the unsub is killed, they're trying to locate the plane because the plane is now off the grid. No one knows where it is, and there's this long silence. Everyone is holding their breath. I'm holding my breath. My heart is pounding. I feel like I'm having an anxiety attack. And then you hear the plane saying that they landed safely. Everybody takes a long breath. I take a breath, and I finally take a sigh of relief. The episode ends with Reed, Kate, and JJ at the crash site, and they're leaving flowers and stuff for the victims. And it ends with this quote by Rossi, and it is, "We knew the world would not be the same. A few people laughed, a few people cried, and a few people were silent." Overall, I would give this episode a 10 out of 10 stars because this episode was written so well. This had to be the best episode to date of this season. Of course, you have a long way to go. It could get better, but I would say give it a 10 out of 10 rating because the way, the attention to detail on the crash site, the storyline, the way that you see them profiling, everything was so spot on. It left the audience, especially me, on the edge of my seat, and it made me never want to get on a plane ever again. I think this episode is going to be one of the most iconic episodes in the Criminal Minds series. It's going to be next to when Hotch's wife dies, when Reed gets kidnapped, when JJ and the 200th. This is going to be one of those episodes that when you look back on it, you're going to think, wow, this was so well done, and it left me on the edge of my seat, and I salute everybody in that damn episode because it was so amazing. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you guys for watching this video recap of Criminal Minds episode 3 from season 10, 1,000 Suns. I'll be back next week, and yes, this video, I'll try to keep these videos on time. I'm getting a little bit better at it, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, favorite this video, subscribe. I love you. Bloopies! Hey guys, it's me Ashley, and I'm coming at you with a new video on blip 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 blip. Hey, what's up you guys? This week's video is going to be about the third episode. So this episode starts off with a quote that I'm going to read on my computer. The radiance of 1,000 suns were to boast... This episode starts off with Hotch reading a quote by... I can't read. I can't read. So yeah, this episode... Oh, camera's backwards. What the hell? First scene, scene because the U.S. wants to use them to... what am I saying? So the military, they looked at the plane and they saw, like, I don't know exactly what they were talking about, but pieces of like the flap of like the landing gear came out and it made the plane unstable. This is a plane. I'm playing.